Our group are going to discuss about Sustainable Development Goals number 8, decent work and economic growth. Decent work means opportunities for everyone to get work that is productive and delivers a fair income, security in the workplace and social protection for families, better prospect for personal development and social integration. It is also important that all women and men are given equal opportunities in the workplace. A continued lack of decent work opportunities, insufficient investment, and other consumption lead to an erosion of the basic social contract underlying democratic societies that all must share in progress. While, on the other hand, economic growth can be defined as the increase or improvement in the inflation-adjusted market value of the goods and services produced by an economy over time. Statisticians conventionally measure such growth as the percent rate of increase in the real gross domestic product. Everyone deserves to live in a world where working conditions are safe, inclusive, and equal so that everyone has the opportunity to progress in their life. But economies are changing and work today is not what it was a decade ago. It requires new ways of thinking to provide for everyone. And we all have a role to play in helping the United Nations achieve the goal of decent work and economic growth by 2030. There are 12 indicators or targets that has been set by the United Nations to a country for whether they have achieved the goal or not achieving it. For instance, full employment and decent work with equal pay, and also universal access to banking and insurance and financial services. Over the past 25 years, the number of workers living in extreme poverty has declined dramatically despite the lasting impact of 2008 economic crisis and global recession. In developing countries, the middle class now makes up more than 34% of total employment, a number that has almost tripled between 1991 and 2015. However, as the global economy continues to recover, we are seeing slower growth, widening inequalities, and not enough jobs to keep up with a growing labor force. According to the International Labour Organization, more than 204 million people were unemployed in 2015. It is in communities where there are lots of people with fewer jobs to go around. The mindful work is high employers compare low wages as workers have no other option. And if workers are injured in the workplace because working conditions are poor, they have no right to compensation and could fall into debt paying their medical bills. But good people everywhere are working hard to help. Code Club International helping to teach kids aged 9 to 13 how to read and write code, give them the 21st century skills that they needed to succeed. This is in line with the hadith, educate your children according to their time because they do not live in your time. This is very important in our effort to ensure that our children are not left behind in the future and help the country in forming a competitive society. As in 2021, many action has been done by the government to realize the dream of achieving sustainable development and economic growth by 2030. For example, full employment since 1992 at the workplace, various law has been amended to improve work conditions, anti-discrimination and various aspects of industrial relation. But everything has changed after the world was hit by the COVID-19 virus outbreak. Millions of lives have been lost and hundreds of millions have been affected with the COVID-19 virus that not only hit world health institutions but also affect world economy that have been growing rapidly in the past 10 years. Malaysia's economic recovery hinges on policies to promote immediate relief and on clear, accessible and targeted support programs to enable firms to preserve liquidity. Recovery efforts should include the extension of conditional wage subsidies, improving the predictability of standard operating procedure (SOP), regulations and speeding approvals and disbursement for existing loans. In the medium and long term, however, Deep and structural reform will be required for private-led post-pandemic economic recovery.
Why does it matter to you and your friend? In this SDG 8, like the speaker once said, there are 12 targets to create action to ensure decent work and sustainable economic growth. I am focusing on 3 targets in this goal that really matter to me and my friend. The first one is promote youth employment, education and training. Finding a good job these days can be an uphill struggle, especially for young people. Youth are particularly exposed to higher unemployment, poor job conditions, and a mismatch between their skills and labor market needs. In addition, the gap between the aspirations of young people and adequate employment opportunities is widening. To address this need, the government should take a big step as Sunday's Family Foundation of St. Paul, Minnesota launched a grant initiative to promote youth social entrepreneurship (YSE) and test its effectiveness in strengthening workforce development with youth in 11 non-profit from low-income areas in the Twin Cities. The YSE is a multi-indicator model for providing equitable economic opportunities for individual youth and their communities. The model integrates 1. Practices of positive youth development to strengthen personal agency. 2. Community engagement to increase social capital. And 3. Workforce skills development. The YSE model also tracks the emotional impact and social-cultural dispositions of youth in settings that might be challenging. Rather than focusing only on job acquisition, as do informal economic building or classic workforce skills training program, the YSE model seeks to address several overlapping layers of complexity of the issue. Secondly, full employment and decent work with equal pay. Urge that member countries should achieve full and productive employment and decent work for all women and men by 2030. As we have shown, the gender nature of work and how it is framed in political and economic discourses militates against valuing some work over others. Mobilizations of cultural and social status to bolster these gender distinctions reinforce the inequality between productive and non-productive employment. Following the life of government workers in the Dominican Republic, Weiner shows how the division of skilled and unskilled work in the labor process is linked to gender perceptions of skill and ability, with men occupying managerial and supervisory positions and the presumptions that sewing is a natural skill for women, thus denying them training opportunities. Based on this, we can see most people on the top of the hierarchy are men. This shows that every position must suit the gender. There is no fair. Every position must have certain criteria that must suit the applicants. In addition, every salary must be equal to their position and not to their gender. As young and inexperienced, my friends and I need to face this kind of unfair behavior from the government. Lastly, end modern slavery, trafficking, and child labor. Since we know that my friend and I still in terms of child, I might say this is really critical matter to us and young generation. We need to take immediate and effective measures to eradicate forced labor, end modern slavery and human trafficking, and secure the prohibition and eliminations of the worst form of child labor, including requirement and use of child soldier, and by 2025, end child labor in all its forms. Far too many children in the world remain trapped in the child labor, compromising their individual future and our collective future. According to the latest ILO global estimates, about 152 million children worldwide, 64 million girls and 88 million boys are child laborers, accounting for almost 10% of the child population. These stark figures underscore the need for accelerated progress against child labor in the lead-up to the 2025 target date for ending child labor in all its forms, and the accompanying needs for child labor statistics to monitor and guide effort in this regard. Reliable, comprehensive, and timely data on the nature and extent of child labor provide a basis for determining priorities for national global action against child labor. Statistical information on child labor, and more broadly on all working children, also provide a basis for increasing public awareness of the situation of working children and 4. The development of appropriate regulatory frameworks and policies.
Okay, now I will tell you guys about how can we achieve the targets on the decent work and economic growth that as mentioned before. I will clarify there is a lot of ways that we can make it happen, but I will make it short to the 3 points for you guys easy to remember this point. First of all, buy from local producers support local economic growth by choosing to buy from local producers and businesses, including support to labor market institutions. The weakening of labor market institution is one key cause of increasing inequality. The structural adjustment paradigm that has governed development since the 1980s has had the undesirable effect of reducing the ability of labor market institutions to moderate market inequality. To implement and achieve SDG 8 on sustainable growth and decent work, comprehensive national employment policy frameworks built upon the principle of policy coherence for development are needed. Governments need to design and implement pro-employment macroeconomic strategies supported by progressive trade, industrial, tax, and infrastructure policies, including investment in education and skill development, youth employment, equality, and the care economy. Secondly, we can apply minimum living wages with the full involvement of social partners. Working poverty remains a major challenge across the globe. Considering that the working poor account for more than 700 million people, meeting SDGs by 2030 will be impossible if this issue is left unaddressed. Implementing and enforcing a statutory minimum wage guaranteeing an income that allows people to live with dignity and is essential to reducing poverty. The decline in the wage share in many countries has contributed to deficiencies in aggregate demand, which has been detrimental for growth and employment at the national level as well for the global economy. Based on data for 62 countries, the pay gap by gender per hour is on average 12%. The salary pay gap by gender on average exceeds 20% in managerial and professional occupations, workers in related craft and trade field, and among plant and machine operators and assemblers. Lastly, you must to know your rights at work. In order to access justice, knowing what you are entitled to will go a long way. We can implement international labor standards, including freedom of association as means of implementation of the 2030 Agenda. Human and labor rights, freedom of association and collective bargaining and social dialogue are not only essential ingredients of sustainable economic growth, but are the pillars of democracy building. Building and fortifying democratic processes is in turn to the cornerstone of just development. Take urgent action and to eradicate forced labor and slavery and trafficking in persons, secure the prohibition and elimination of the worst form of child labor, and by 2030 end child labor in all its forms. As a conclusion, we hope this step will happen by 2030, achieve full and productive employment and decent work for all women and men, including for young people and persons with disabilities, and equal pay for work of equal value for the better world. Although the COVID-19 virus has slowed down economic growth, hopefully for Malaysia can implement a recovery program smoothly for us to achieve goal 8 decent work and economic growth by 2030 and on par with the other great powers of the world. That's all from us.